It's Patrick Hutzel from Intensive Care at Home, where we provide tailor-made solutions for long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies and otherwise medically complex patients by improving their quality of life, and where we also provide tailor-made solutions to hospitals and intensive care units to save money and resources whilst providing quality care. In last week's blog, I shared how do intensive care at home and long-term intensive care compare. You can check out last week's episode by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to share a recent Canadian study by Henry T. Stelfox, MD and PhD from University of Calgary, Alberta, and colleagues that confirms that discharging patients from ICU to home is becoming more and more mainstream. Therefore, today's blog ties right in with the last blog where we compared intensive care at home and long-term intensive care stay. I let the study speak for itself. It just confirms that ICU long-term stays are not sustainable from a financial, bed block, and quality of life point of view. People can go home with the right discharge planning and with the right support structure, like having ICU nurses coming to their home, some in the short term and some in the long term. The study recommends what we have been saying since the beginning of starting our journey, that ICUs need to develop discharge procedures that include identification of candidate patients for discharge directly to home, develop protocols to facilitate the process, train ICU clinicians in these procedures, send patients home with appropriate support, and measure outcomes. We certainly measure outcomes, and our clients have very low readmission rates to hospital or ICU in spite of mechanical ventilation, tracheostomy, and or other medical complexities. ICU nursing skills in the home makes this possible. It saves lives and it also saves money. I put a link to the published study below, and I will also read it out now in a second. And if you are watching this on YouTube, just click on the link below this video. That'll get you to our website, and there you can read the study directly. So direct discharge home from the ICU doesn't increase healthcare utilization or mortality according to research published in JAMA Internal Medicine. The safety of discharging adult patients recovering from critical illness directly home from the intensive care unit or ICU is unknown. Again, from Henry T. Stelfox, MD, PhD from University of Calgary, Alberta, and colleagues wrote. Stelfox and colleagues performed a retrospective population-based cohort study to determine the healthcare utilization and clinical outcomes for patients discharged directly home from the ICU compared with those discharged home via the hospital ward. The researchers enrolled 6,732 adult patients, median age 56 years, 42% women, admitted to one of 9 medical surgical hospitals. Participants were followed for 1 year after hospital discharge. Overall, 14% of participants were discharged directly home, while the rest went to the hospital ward from which they were ultimately discharged. Direct discharges home from the ICU ranged significantly across hospitals from 4.4% to 44%. Patients discharged directly home were more likely to be younger, median age 47 versus 57 years of age, to have been admitted to the hospital due to overdose, substance withdrawal, seizures, or metabolic coma, 32% versus 10%, to have less severe acute illness on ICU admission, median Apache 2 score 15 versus 18, and to have received less than 48 hours of invasive mechanical ventilation, 42% versus 34% than those discharged home via the hospital ward. In the propensity score matched cohort N is 1632, there were similar lengths of ICU stays among patients discharged directly home and those discharged home via the hospital ward, median 3.1 days versus 3.0 days. However, length of hospital stay was significantly shorter among those discharged directly home, median 3.3 days versus 9.2 days. Readmission rate to the hospital 10% versus 11%, HR is 0.88, 95%, CI 0.64 to 1.2, or ED visit 25% versus 26%, HR 0.94, 95%, CI 0.81 to 1.09 within 30 days of hospital discharge didn't significantly differ between the two groups. Risk factors for readmission to the hospital or ED visits included leaving against medical advice, lack of community supports, and discharge from an ICU with high volumes of patients, according to the researchers. The percentage of patients who died within 1 year of hospital discharge was the same in both groups, 4%. And we recommend that ICUs develop discharge procedures that include identification of candidate patients for discharge directly home, develop protocols to facilitate the process, train ICU clinicians in these procedures, and measure outcomes, Stelfox and colleagues concluded. In an accompanying editorial, Kayan Safavi, MD, MBA from Massachusetts General Hospital, and colleagues suggest that direct discharge from the ICU may help to reduce congestion both in the ICU and on the floors. It is important, however, that strategies are also pursued to ensure safe and timely discharge from the general care unit, and studies are needed to investigate the factors that are keeping patients on the wards beyond the time needed, they wrote, by Elena Tedesco. So that's the study. If you want to find out how we can help you to get your loved one out of intensive care and home, and that's also including palliative care. Also, if you want to know how we can help you to get your loved one out of long-term acute care or out of a nursing home, or if you find that you have insufficient support for your loved one at home on a ventilator, if you want to know how to get funding for our service, or if you have any questions, please send me an email to patrick@intensivecareathome.com or call on one of the numbers on the top of the website. Also, we are currently hiring ICU nurses for our clients in Melbourne, Sunbury, and in South Gibson, Victoria, in the Warragul and Leongatha area. We are an NDIS, TAC, and DVA approved community service provider in Australia. We have also been part of the Royal Melbourne Health Accelerator program for innovative healthcare companies last year. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's blog. This is Patrick Hutzel from Intensive Care at Home, and I'll see you again next week in another update.